God-given freedoms that no government, no corporation has a right to trample, to take off us. For you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Truth has a name. His name is Jesus Christ. And it goes on to say, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. Honestly, let's not believe that this is a book to control us. I tell you who wants to control us. Satan wants to control us with his minions, with his alphabet gang. But God wants us to have freedom and to live in harmony with him.
Well, good evening and welcome tonight to Freedom Has a Voice, a very special guest with me this evening. And we're going to have a critical conversation really about some of the big issues, one of the very big issues that's facing humanity at this time. I thank you for joining me. It's this evening where I am, but not where my guest, Dr. Peter McCullough is. It's a different time zone altogether, but I do want to welcome you, Peter, tonight. And before I get started, I want to just let folk know, most people know this. I'd call him a national hero in the US, but you're an international hero, Peter, for many people around the globe. And we're so thankful for what you're doing. But Peter is the most published physician in cardiology history. As many would know, he's highly qualified. I could list all of his qualifications. It'd take a long time. But he's been a leader in the medical response to the COVID-19 disaster, dozens of peer-reviewed publications on the infection. And he's a regular, as you know, on mainstream media, on many mainstream media platforms and outlets. And he has testified multiple times in the US Senate and also in several state senates. Peter is considered one of the world's experts on COVID-19. And he's joining us tonight to talk about another epidemic. I notice in your bio I put up there, Peter, that you are an epidemiologist as well. And I want to talk tonight about another social contagion that the world's facing, and something that we have spoken about even privately at different times as we've talked, and realized that our young people, our teenagers, our children are facing something I would consider personally, I'm no doctor myself, but personally something far more dangerous than even the trademarked virus COVID-19. And that is this LGBT, or let's call it the queer, trans, social contagion ideology that young people really are falling for. And it's increasing and expanding at a rate of knots. Peter, do we have an epidemic on our hands globally of queer, trans contagion among young people and children?
Dylan, thank you so much for having me on the program. It's great to see you. That opening montage really got me fired up. I tell you what, you've been a leader, a spiritual leader, a leader for common sense in Australia, but you know, all over the world, Americans follow you. People all over the world follow you. We love your strength, speaking truth to power. As introduced, I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist and a research epidemiologist in the United States, president of the McCullough Foundation. And I can tell you, as an epidemiology student and a practitioner, epidemiology is the study of the distribution and determinants of disease. And yes, this transgender social contagion is a manifestation of a disease. It is. It's a manifestation of disordered thinking. None of us, Dylan, when we were children growing up, ever could conceive this would happen. Did you ever think when you were a young lad that this could happen?
No, I certainly didn't, Peter. And also, I've often thought it's taken me a while to get my head around it. So it's almost like I think it's going to blow over, that common sense and reason will prevail and people will come to their senses on this. But I've seen the opposite happen, Peter. I mean, I was looking at, listening again to Abigail, I should say, Schreier. And of course, many would know this book here, Irreversible Damage. And look at just, looking at some of what she's written about the explosion in gender services and gender clinics in the last, 5 to 10 years. this is not blowing over or going away as we would expect at a rational level. It's getting worse. And I guess what I want to talk about tonight is why and how and where's it coming from?
Well, let's kind of build out the epidemiology of this. So the first question one could ask is, what characteristics of a young person would lead them to think that they should undergo medical treatments and surgery to change their gender? What features in a young person? Now there are multiple studies that have weighed in, either looking backwards or looking forwards in terms of the sampling frame. And it's clear, Dylan, what's driving this is autism spectrum disorder. So that's
Wow.
another problem that didn't exist when we were younger. When you and I were young, the rate of autism was estimated to be 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 36, according to the CDC. Our biggest childhood crisis right now is autism. And all the data are clear. It's autistic young children who feel ostracized, who don't feel like they fit in, very suggestible. They can be easily influenced by adults. They can be indoctrinated. They spend a lot of time alone, heavily influenced by pornography and sexualization of educational materials. It's the autistic children, Dylan, who then become entrapped in this process of gender change and transformation.
Very interesting you bring that up, and it's something that I picked up as well in President Donald Trump's recent speech to Congress. He brought it up. In fact, for our viewers, I'm going to pull that piece up because I've got it ready to go. It only goes for just a minute, where he talks about getting to the bottom of this autism increase. Let me see if I can just pull this up now for us.
My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools.
Where are we? Here we go. No, that is not the one that I want there. I'm going to go for the other one.
Dylan, I have to say, while you're doing this, I'm so impressed you had the temerity to do this. It's not easy at our age to master this technology. But I asked myself, I said, is Dylan Oakley, is he really going for it with a video inserted into our interview? And I said, he is. This is amazing.
I am. And I don't have a techie to help me either, Peter. So it's like half my day today was spent trying to get my head around all this. And I have done a bit on StreamYard, but I've let it go.
But listen, you don't have to fight for that clip. Let me just tell you, Trump in his address, go ahead, hit play and see if it will go.
Yeah. I reckon I can do it. Thank you for your patience. Let me go again. Let me see here. Is it this one?
That little chevron button to the lower. I think if you hit play, it'll go.
Yeah. Here we go. Is that working on their end?
No. Get down to the lower left corner and hit play. I think it'll go.
Oh dear.
Yeah, get down there to the play button. That's okay.
Okay. We're going to leave that one. I'm going to use some other embedded images. You'll have to forgive me, people who are watching this evening. But let's just talk about it. Donald Trump brought that up.
Donald Trump brought that up. We have an autism crisis. He used the term toxic ideologies. This is very important. And Elon Musk, who's playing a very big role in government transformation, has used the term woke mind virus. Yeah. It's almost as if a thought pattern is jumping from person to person. So let's build this out. So the susceptibility is clearly a child with autism. The parents have a feeling of, there's some guilt around having an autistic child. Parents feel like maybe they played a role in the development of this problem. Clearly, the parents are victims themselves and are scrambling to try to help their children. then a child in school is, incessantly presented sexualized materials, images, workbooks. As they develop and approach puberty, they have some ambiguity, which is natural. They have natural ambiguity. And then as the young people begin to date in heterosexual dating, the autistic children feel left out. They're typically not the high school quarterback or the cheerleader, the most popular people. And then they seek counseling. And Dylan, you know what happens there? The counselors suggest that maybe they were born in the wrong body. Maybe they're actually a different gender.
And what we see happening in schools, and I'm glad you bring it round to schools and what's going on in the schools, because that's been the focus area for myself, is that you have teachers, not just the counselors, but even teachers who have been indoctrinated really with queer theory coming through the universities, the tertiary institutions, and they're very quick to suggest to a child that this could be the problem that they're facing. So, and then once a child starts going down that road, we have this affirmation model that says we're going to affirm, we're going to, rather than look at any underlying issues, we're going to affirm a child in this dysphoria, if you like, or in this confusion. There could be traumatic instances that have happened. There could be the autism playing a part as well in some cases. But that's maybe some people who even mean well. And then you have LGBT activists, what I would call activists in our institutions. Peter, since I started bringing up the need for having a parliamentary inquiry in our schools around queer theory, activism, ideology in the schools, what I would call propaganda around the schools, parents have reached out and said to me, that their children really at any indication or any questioning are being addressed by organisations. There's one called true.org. Anyone who's watching, have a look at true.org.au. It's a bit of a misnomer right there. It's called true.org. It's run by LGBT activists, and they run a curriculum in our Queensland schools. Somebody shared with me some of the drawings, Peter, for prep students, little kids in prep here in Australia. It's like pre-grade 1. Mm-hmm. They're getting drawings. I don't even want to publish them. Drawings of naked little boy, naked little girl, and they've got to colour in their private parts with different colours, and they're going to talk through sexually explicit information, biological information, stuff that is outside of the realm, in my opinion, of educators, school administrators, mm-hmm. and in the realm of parents, and we don't give that level of trust. We don't give that level of responsibility to LGBT or queer theorists to educate our children this way. The big thing that comes back, Peter, every time is that we had no idea it was happening. Let me just see if I can do this a little bit better, see if this comes up. Yeah, this is working. I can manage these images anyway. In a high school that I was teaching at last year, in fact, Australia's largest high school, called Marsden State High School, I took some photos of just some of the things that are presented in the school. This is one of the bathrooms in the school, one of the bathroom doors there. And you've got to remember, a lot of parents, Peter, they won't see this. They drop their children at the school gate. They trust that they're going to be looked after by educators. That their trust is going to be respected. But what happens, let's have a look at another one here. This is the staff room door, Peter. You go to the humanities staff room, you want to talk to your history teacher about something, that's the staff room door. All these different kind of queer identities. If you have a look, as you look into the actual staff room, you'll see that it continues on in there too with more propaganda and imagery. Same school again, the school library, completely fitted out with a display. All of these books here are queer, suggested queer book reading. And you'll notice even on the school uniform, you have a rainbow appearing here. Now, from what I can understand, that would be an opt-in uniform. Not every child, of course, is expected to wear that. But at what point should we be accepting that schools can start to changed the uniform to put symbols of trans and queer ideology on the uniform. You can move along, and there's things in our school here called Wear It Purple Day, where this happens every year. And there's another day as well for different reasons, but this is quite a common one, the Wear It Purple Day. And all the children are given purple ribbons to wear by their form teachers at the start of the day. At what point do we say this is not about supporting a child in the school who is, as you said, maybe, experiencing some gender dysphoria, or is this pushing it in their faces? Is this messing with their heads, messing with their minds? Somebody sent me this image. This is a book that somebody took a photo of on a teacher's desk in a Queensland high school. It says our trans experiences in a celebration of gender expression, man, woman, non-binary, and beyond. So we've got to ask the question.
Yeah, Dylan, before you show some more images, let me address some key concepts. This whole movement has an underpinning, and it's basically a false pretext. And the pretext is that at birth, we're all born differently, and girls can be born, but actually, be male, and boys can be born and actually be female. So therefore, this false pretext is set up. So if people begin to cross genders, and there's any resistance to this, people say, well, that's being discriminatory, that we were born this way. And we can't discriminate against LGBT because we were born this way. So let's address that. Since the beginning of man, since, the book of Genesis, God created man in his image and created man and woman. And we forever have been man or woman, forever and ever and ever. So we're born as little boys and we're born as little girls, with very rare exceptions. There are some very rare genetic exceptions, which we'll leave aside. Now, Miriam Grossman, in her book, Lost in Transnation, which is one of the best books on this topic, says that gender affirmation is a normal developmental process that occurs in the home with parents. So this is very important for people listening, because there are parents right now, Dylan, who are frightened of what could happen to their child when they, lose control of them in school. So in these early developmental years, kind of 0 to age 4 to 8, gender affirmation is that, a little boy is, constantly encouraged and coached by his parents that he will become a man like his father. That, he is a little boy and he'll become a man. A little girl will become a woman. And this gender affirmation, if done correctly during childhood, and particularly if a child has autism, they really need gender affirmation by their parents. They'll be very resistant to any of this indoctrination when they go to school. But if the parents also leave it ambiguous or create ambiguity here, as the child approaches puberty, almost certainly there will become gender dysphoria.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a look at you talk about in those formative years when the parents are doing the gender affirmation. This is some of the material that's coming up in Queensland schools, New South Wales schools as well. Instead of having the gingerbread man, we have now the genderbread person, and a whole lot of gender bending ideas around, the fluidity of gender and biological sex. You're completely correct there, Peter. As you know, as a Christian man as well, we are given, Jesus made it very clear in the beginning, God created them male and female. He created them. We have a definitive truth proposition from God himself. We are made in his image, made in his design. And it's not only that would bear the responsibility. It's not only the parents that are to reinforce this, but the pastors and the churches. Mm-hmm. Peter, I think one area that we need to encourage, inspire, motivate convict even, is our church leaders to speak forthrightly about the truth proposition that God gives us in the scriptures, and not be swayed or intimidated by the culture that is going into a delusionary frame. We look in the scripture, and it's very, very clear that, if people abandon truth, if they abandon God, if they abandon the Bible, like we've done in the West, you're going to fill the vacuum with some really crazy, delusional things. And that goes back to what I was saying at the start. It explains why reason hasn't prevailed here, or rationality hasn't prevailed around this. Something spiritual's going on. We've given up ground, the truth ground, and the vacuum's been filled now with a perversion that has no foundation. It is fluid in its whole philosophy. Where does it end? And that's the scary thing. Where does it end? We've warned people. Does it move into pedophilia? Does it move into animal? Where does this go?
Well, let's talk about this. The next stage that happens is the child goes to school, typically has autism spectrum disorders, the vast majority. So already is vulnerable. The parents know this. And the child, with all of this material, that in a sense is convincing the child that they're in the wrong body, that this boy thinks he should be a girl and vice versa. They feel so uncomfortable as they approach puberty. The most common wedge that they put into the family dynamics is they'll come home one day and say, I'm going to change my gender. I'm going to become transgender. And if you don't let me, I'm going to commit suicide.
Ultimate manipulation.
Yes. So it's the threat of suicide. I've had so many parents approach me, say, Dr. McCullough, I'm stuck. A lot of parents say, I'm a single parent and I've got this very difficult situation. My child has autism and now they're threatening suicide. Now, this has gone so far that in many countries like Canada, maybe Australia for that matter, if the parent tries to stop the child in going through this gender change, the parent can be criminalized. We're talking federal fines or imprisonment.
Well, courage is required, Peter. The only thing that takes for evil to prosper and to flourish is for good men, good women to do nothing, to stay silent. And I think we've been silent for too long, not only on this issue, but other moral issues, other issues around, human liberty and freedom, issues around morality. And as I shared recently at a tent revival I was preaching, and there's always been a good reason not to say no to evil, not to push back, not to speak truth. We've always got a good reason. Before it was something else, and it's getting worse. But at some point, we just have to say, Dr. McCullough, we just have to say, I don't care anymore. I'm going to speak truth. I'm going to stand up for our children. I'm going to push back on evil. It's all we have.
Right. And Dylan, what parents can do is they can continue to affirm the normal gender at birth. Don't play along with these pronouns and don't play along with changing names. So, a few months ago, I was on Fox News. As many people know, I'm a public figure in the United States. I was on Fox News prime time, and they had me comment on a transgender pediatrician who is the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services under the prior administration. Now, it's a man. His name is Richard Levine, but he's transgender, so he dresses up like a woman, and he says his name is Rachel Levine. And so on Fox News on prime time, this is what I told America. I said, he's a man who's living out his sexual fantasy as a woman, but he doesn't have the right to push that ideology on our children. But we can't get mixed up on gender. One time I was doing an interview on a show and I talked to a mother about their child. I got so confused in the end, I couldn't figure out who we were talking about. Were we talking about a boy or a girl? And I told myself, you know what? I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
Doctors have the job of assigning gender at birth. We sign the birth certificates, and I certainly did that in my training when I delivered babies. And the bottom line is I'm not going to deviate from that. I am not going to pretend that someone is an opposite gender when they're not. I'm not going to use pronouns, and I'm not going to use false names. We have to stick with this and understand that this is a journey where people are trying to live out some, as you pointed out, delusional fantasy.
Well, you do have a Substack, I believe it's called Courageous Discourse, and you exemplify that. And by speaking truth speech, even on Fox News, thank you very much. We salute you for that, Peter. I think we can win this battle if we are ever so bold, and if we continue to speak forthrightly and truthfully, and believe that that the truth always does win. Why? Because God does have a great regard and care for humanity. He has not abandoned us. It's one thing I always letting people know. Sometimes we look around and on every front there seems to be evil pressing in. But Isaiah 59 verse 19, when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord raises up a standard against him. And that standard could be a David taking out a Goliath. That standard can be you or I or anybody else who chooses to put their hand up and say, look, with whatever I have, I'm going to speak truth. I'm going to be courageous. Right. We can turn this around, even though the odds are against us.
No, well, I tell you what, Dylan, my role is to give the truth about the science, the medical science of what have we learned about this.
Yeah.
So very importantly, let's take this child through the journey now. They are before puberty, and they start puberty blockers. The most common one is called Lupron. Sadly,
which has not got FDA approval. I was reading.
It's not FDA licensed to do this, and we're giving a drug that the normal human body shouldn't receive at this stage at all. And this happened to Elon Musk's son, for instance, and that's where Elon Musk became so disturbed. Well, I've studied the data on this. The puberty blockers, there's 5 studies that show this. They permanently impair intellectual development. So that child will have a lower IQ the rest of their life. So it's very important that children go through puberty at the right time. It cannot be hormonally delayed, because that puberty and the surge of hormones that, develop a man into a man and a woman into a woman also develop the brain intellectually. It's not just the physical genitalia. Right. So the puberty blockers are very dangerous. They make the children sick. They get headaches, weight gain, nausea, vomiting, acne, and of course, this permanent impairment in IQ. They may never develop to the point of being a college student. I mean, this is a horrible reality. 5 studies show this. Now, if it's beyond puberty, then what's given are either androgens or estrogens. And in a review from Spain, it clearly showed that by Santos and colleagues, clearly showed the kids get sick with these. The headaches, nausea, vomiting, weight gain. Recently, a child developed with the estrogens, developed blood clots because we shouldn't be giving estrogens to little boys, and the blood clots were fatal for this young person. Then the surgeries, which are nothing short of heinous, but I've got to describe them so parents can understand what they're going to be facing. Probably the least dangerous is going to be a boy getting breast implants. Now, the breast implants themselves, are uncomfortable. They shouldn't rest over a man's pectoralis muscles, and they tend to actually disturb the lymphatics, so there can be drainage problems afterwards. Removing the breasts in a woman's even far more complicated than a girl, because all the breast tissue is scraped off and the skin is kept very taut, and that leads to contracture. So almost all the girls who've done this, they begin to come down because they can't lift their chest up. And then the surgeries below are mind-boggling. In the boys, the penis is opened longwise and cored out and then made to be invaginated as a tube. And this is called penile inversion vaginoplasty. It leaks, it gets infected, it doesn't have normal sexual function, it needs revisions. The testicles are removed, can't be replaced. And in the girls, the clitoris is either tried to become enlarged into a penis, and it doesn't work. It's called a metoidioplasty. And then the final surgery is called a phalloplasty, taking a big chunk of the thigh or the arm and trying to make it into a sausage-like and put it over the clitoris. None of these become sexually viable organs. There's a 30 to 50% revision rate because of infection, urinary drainage problems, etc. And they clearly are sterilizing. So if we look at the entire package of what we're looking at here, and this is the reason why now this is banned in the United States, banned for under age 18. It was banned in about 25 states, including Texas, in the last few years. But when Trump came in, now it's banned in the United States. This is how bad. Think about this. This is a care model that hospitals, doctors, and clinics are offering that is so dangerous it's banned. The reason why it's banned is the package of care increases the burden of psychiatric disease, doesn't make it better. It makes the kids sick. It's sterilizing, disfiguring. And then multiple studies show it leads to increased mortality for homicide, suicide, and other causes, Dylan. It's a total disaster. And as we sit here today, no ethical doctor, nurse, technician, or hospital administrator should ever be involved in this.
Yeah, it is mutilation. It speaks to me of something far more than even a delusional thing. I see a spiritual agenda behind this, Peter. Really, it's a demonic thing. It's diabolical. What's happening as you describe that. I do want to have one more try to put for the viewers, just that short part about Donald Trump. You mentioned how he has banned this. Let me try this again. I'm going to try this again.
Dylan, you are intrepid.
A few years ago,
Is that working now?
Little John and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Stories like this are why, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology.
Yeah.
I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Because we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better?
Dylan,
Yeah, I wanted to play that. Sorry.
I was going to say, I couldn't say it any better myself. That's the type of leadership that we needed in the United States. That's the type of leadership that's needed worldwide. We just have to make a call here. This is not good for the individual. It's not good for the families. It's not good for society. Clearly, it's a path that mankind has gone down. That's the wrong path. And that every country is realizing this. Northern Europe was ahead of us in this transgender craze. The UK and the Netherlands and other countries, they've pulled back. They've shut down these clinics. They've banned these puberty blockers. They recognize that it was a horrible human experiment and so many people were harmed.
We are so thankful and grateful for the US leadership on this, because in Australia and New Zealand, for that matter as well, we're still fighting very hard. We don't have any political leaders who are speaking very forthrightly, with the exception of some of what we would call the minor or conviction parties. Senator Malcolm Roberts from One Nation has been very good in helping me get the word out. And he said to pass on his regards during this interview as well to you. And also, Robbie Catter, let me just put up a couple of, just quickly to show what we are trying to do here, Peter. I was in Queensland Parliament recently. I took a full submission that I wrote there, sharing some experiences I had as a teacher in the school. Also gave copies of this book to MPs called Devastated. It's an Australian book by Kira Lee Smith. It shows the cases and the families in this country that have been devastated as their children have been taken down this affirmation model, and as social contagion has taken hold. And also I shared those photos with them as well, happening in our schools. I'm calling Dr. McCullough for a full parliamentary inquiry in Queensland into what is happening in our schools. I want to see complaints from parents collated, and we have to keep the pressure on our state government MPs. One of our state MPs is a man by the name of Robbie Catter. He has 3 MPs in Queensland Parliament, and he did help me to get an audience with different MPs from different parties while I was in Queensland Parliament. So there are some good men, good women in our government. I don't want to say that we don't have any courageous voices, but they're too few. And at the moment in our leadership, in terms of our Prime Minister and the opposition, we're concerned. We're very concerned in this country unless we get some changes. Malcolm Roberts, Senator Roberts did share and just have a look at this, Peter, here. In 6 days after he shared this post about what I was showing in the schools, look at the amount of reactions there on Facebook. 1,900 reactions there with 667 comments. This is a big deal in this nation, even though some of our political leaders will want to sweep it under the carpet or ignore what's happening. Parents either don't know or they don't approve. But what I'm encouraging, if you don't know, ignorance is no excuse. We have to know what's going on. They're our children. And once we do know, we have to start pushing back, making complaints, seeing our state MP. And I want to see a full parliamentary inquiry. I want to keep the pressure on our governments, Peter, to expose anything untoward happening in our schools. And I know that is going on. Children are impressionable. Even as you described, we have families, parents who are doing the right thing. They're training their child up in the right ways, but it's being undone, counteracted by let's say delusional or misguided teachers and staff.
Right. I have just a few more medical points on this for the parents to be aware of. And this is the peer-reviewed published literature. A child who becomes transgender and ultimately through the teenage years changes their gender, much higher rates of syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, human papillomavirus. This hypersexualization is incredibly risky for sexually transmitted diseases. And I want to encourage all the doctors and nurses and healthcare people listening, don't go along with this. No. Remember, a man who's pretending as if he's a woman, still is at risk for prostatitis and for prostate cancer. A woman who's pretending to be a man still can get cervical dysplasia and ovarian cysts and other problems. We cannot change people's genders. They are given at birth or God-given, and the genders have their own medical care. Don't go. There is a tremendous backlash. We cannot let men participate in little girls' sports and women's sports because there's great harm because men and women are physically different. We can't have this delusion of living out a sexual fantasy as the opposite sex. Enter sports, the classroom, the workplace, military. We can't go along with this. Now, listen, what's the counter side of this? If an adult over age 18 wants to do this, that's their own choice. And, they can do whatever they want to do. It's a free country in Australia. It's a free country in the United States. But under no circumstances can they approach our children with their distorted ideology.
Yeah, very good point. And I do want to give a call out to someone like Dr. Gillian Spencer here in Queensland, who is a doctor, a psychologist who's been pushing back against this at great personal cost and sacrifice. We do have some good people in the medical profession. Around the world, there are good people, courageous people doing the best they can with what they have to push back. And I just encourage them. I know you do, that this is our lot. We have to take up the cause and do the best to fight the way we can. I know your time is limited, Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm really thankful again for you coming on this evening, and I know it's early where you are, and sharing your thoughts. I guess we could explore some more at another time when we keep talking about autism. We have the next question I know a lot of viewers are going to be thinking is, what's behind the spike in autism? And we all have our suspicions around that, and it's interesting. Donald Trump tasked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's find out what these toxins are that is causing a spike. And I think we could probably talk about maybe the childhood vaccination schedule, what's going on around vaccines. There's a whole, could we call it a Pandora's box, that could be behind this spike.
So true. And we'll have to pick that up on another program, Dylan. But I do want to leave your audience with a resource. And it's an organization I donate to generously in the United States. It's called Do No Harm. Go to donoharm.org. It's led by my colleague Stanley Goldfarb, who's one of the most published people in his field in nephrology. Stan and I have published together, former dean at the University of Pennsylvania. And he has led this organization that is confronting this delusional ideology in medicine. And they're showing up at the Endocrine Society and the plastic surgery meetings and presenting the data on how harmful this is. Stan has gone to the point of U.S. congressional testimony himself, Marion Grossman and others. And he's very senior in his career. They need support. They've done incredibly well in the last few years. They have a staff, I think about 8 people in their office. Huge impact now. So Do No Harm, very worthy of donation.
Right. In
so many things, Dylan, whether we like it or not, America is the leader for the world. And we're very grateful to Donald Trump and the new administration for taking very clear steps in leadership to abolish this gender ideology indoctrination and to ban these heinous transgender surgeries in medicine. It's not reversible. For the parents to understand, this is not something that can reverse. 1 or 2 shots of Lupron, it's over with. We cannot reverse this. Now's the time for every family to take the measures necessary to protect their children. And that includes affirming their gender at birth through early in childhood and to make them resistant to these various influences in school.
Yeah, the barrage that comes. That Lupron that you mentioned, I mean, it was used, correct me if I'm wrong, this is what they use for sexual offenders as a way of, blocking. It's not even, I mean, the very use of it should not be used for, trying to block healthy hormonal
can you imagine?
development.
Yeah. Can you imagine 1 or 2 shots? And I think once the data came out that it permanently impairs the development of IQ, this is horrible. No parent would want to restrict their child's intellectual development. I mean, we have to understand this. This is not a minor conversation here. Parents have to step forward, and particularly those with autistic children. This is largely a problem of autism. And so children with autistic, parents with autistic children must understand that transgender is a risk for their children. Normal little girls and boys, honestly, they're mentally resistant to this. That's not the issue. But the autistic kids are at risk.
Peter, we're going to hear from you again very, very soon, because on the 29th of March, you're joining us via live stream for the event, The Tyranny of Silence in Hervey Bay. And I know it was only a year ago you were part of the Moving Forward event there in the Sunshine Coast. And I'm pleased that the same tech guy that helped you there to do a successful live stream contribution is going to be helping me this time. It won't be me running the laptop, I can assure you.
Well, I'll be joining my colleagues in Australia. I'll be in Phoenix, Arizona, at a very important event held by the Adventist Church in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd love to be there. I made a tour in the Gold Coast of the Sunshine Coast and in Australia a few years ago, and of course I've lectured there decades ago in all the major medical schools, and I'm delighted to come back. Dylan, I don't really understand how such a reasonable, wealthy country like Australia, where the quality of life is so good, the appreciation of nature is wonderful, how Australia could get so off track mentally. And you and I are working very hard to bring our Australian colleagues back to their senses, and everybody should follow Dylan Oakley. Freedom has a voice, and it does. And I'm Dr. Peter McCullough, joining the show today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Peter. And we'll catch up again very, very soon. We'll see you via live stream in a couple of weeks. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much. And God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thank you today for listening to me as I have spoken very forthrightly and in the interest of freedom of speech, which we're all standing for. You know what? It's important that our society allows good old-fashioned preaching, good old soapbox preaching. If you don't like what I'm saying, ignore it. If you don't believe what I'm saying, disregard it. But don't go and dob on me to the government and get me thrown into jail. Let ideas be contested in the marketplace. And I tell you what, this word will stand always. God bless you. I love you guys.